everyone, I have a quick video for you today. I was asked by J Villanueva 723 if I could explain how to fill out the scene sheets from Mythic Game Master Emulator 2nd edition. Since you're getting into Mythic 2nd edition, I assume you're talking about the adventure lists and the adventure journal and not a more advanced rule like keyed scenes. So today, let me give you a short introduction on two of Mythic's most useful sheets, the adventure lists and the adventure journal. These are two things you will encounter right from the get-go when playing Mythic, and they come very handy when you start to get used to them. First, I will start with the lists, then I will tell you about the adventure log, and I will also tell you how I've been using these in my games so far. I'll be dropping lots of little tips and practical insights, so you might still enjoy watching this video even if you're already read through the rules. Now, let's start. You'll find the adventure list on page 193 at the end of the book. You'll see it as two columns, the threads list and the characters list. Their main purpose is to keep track of whatever is happening in your story. The threads list is there to keep track of events, quests, goals, basically anything you or your characters would like to do. While the characters list is there, to keep track of characters. For example, here are the adventure lists for Sariel and the Sword of Azathoth, which is a series I've been doing on YouTube. As you can see, I have different things listed in my threads. I have get the scroll from the merchant, which is my quest. But I also have who is tasking us with getting the scroll, which is something I would like to find out during the course of the game. I also have there is a tiger at the party, and there are guards in the hall. These are facts that will most likely come in play during my next game. Now, if you look at the character list, I have two entries. I have Dario, a rival thief, and Sam Salazar, a rich merchant. Thus far, I have encountered many characters, but I only chose to put those two in because they had the biggest influence so far. Also note that I didn't put my main character or her sidekick in there. That's because this list is more made for NPCs than for PCs or player characters. Now, if you look closer at the sheet, there are also little numbers next to each row. In the blue zone, you have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the names of dice like D4, D6, D8, and so on. While in each rectangle, you have numbers from 1 through 10. This is because the lists are used when you have a random event and you want to choose among your threads or your characters at random. The official explanation is on page 44, but let me give you my more condensed version of it. If I'm playing the game and I get an interrupt scene, or if I get doubles, and that's a random event, I will need to roll a 1d100 and look on the random event focus table, which you can find on page 197. If you look on that table, you'll see you have a lot of results. So here you can see from 21 to 85. If you get anywhere between that, you have a bunch of events that talk about NPCs or threads. For example, if I roll, say, 54, I get move towards a thread. Now, if we go on page 40, the game tells me this random event brings the PC one step closer to resolving an open thread. So, any of the threads that are on your thread list. Roll on the thread list to see which thread the event involves. As you can see, the game suggests I could go back to my threads and roll a dice to pick one at random. If we go back to the list I showed before, I would only need to roll 1d10 because I only have one rectangle that's already filled. However, if I add one more thread, so a total of 6, I would need to first roll 1d4, and then I would roll my 1d10, right? To know which rectangle I select and then which number out of 10. For example, if I roll a 3 on my d4 and then a 6 on my d10, that gives me a blank space. In this case, Mythic says you can either choose the thread yourself or reroll. But if you choose it yourself, they suggest you take the one that makes the most sense. Also, as you can imagine, it's the same method to choose a character at random as it is to choose a thread. Now that you know the basics about adventure lists, let me give you a couple more tips. Most of these tips are talked about in more detail on pages 60 to 63 of the book. When should I add characters or threads to the list? Well, there's 2 times when you're supposed to do that. The first one you can do right before your first scene, when you're kind of getting your idea together. And the second one is in between each scene. So when you're updating your adventure, basically. Say you want to play a sci-fi game because you had a cool idea. Let's say you're thinking about space pirates and lightsabers. Before you start playing, you may want to write a few things in your threads and in your characters, because if you get a random event, it'll help guide it towards your idea. So maybe you want pirates to attack a ship. That's a scene you have in mind. So you could put attack of the pirates as a thread. You also know that you want to explore the galaxy, so you could add discover a new planet as a second thread. With your 2 threads written down, you start thinking about a couple characters. Since you want to wield a lightsaber, why not add a master for your character that could have trained you? Maybe you also think it would be cool to have a rival, so you could also put his or her name in. Now, what if you have an idea for the name where you come from? Should you put it in the threads list or in the characters list? Well, according to Mythic, you should put it in the characters. Mythic also says you could put groups, so let's say pirates, lightsaber fighters, etc., and also objects. But they do say if you put an object in there, it should be something that can do things on their own or have an influence over people. So like a spaceship or something like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. Like a magical item, basically. Putting all of these together, you might end up with an adventure list that looks like this, even before actually starting to play. Though, if you want to leave more things up to chance, you can always leave all of that blank, or only write one character, one thread, something like that, before playing, and you'll just come up with things as you go. That is usually how I like to do things, because I feel like that way I get stories that are a little bit more original. Also, on page 63, they have more tips on how to fill out the adventure list before starting an adventure. What kind of character should I put in my characters list? The game recommends that you only put characters that really influence the story in your list. What I usually do is I'll put characters that organically come back from scene to scene, or ones I would like to see again. The way I like to look at it, it's like when I put something in my adventure list, it's like telling the game, I want to pursue this, or I want to see this more often. Now I have one more tip for you about adventure lists. This is something I learned about while rereading the chapters in preparation for this video. It may seem a little bit weird, but you can also put game events in your characters list. So according to the rules, this will make that event occur a lot more frequently in your game. For example, if pirate attacks are frequent in your game world, you could just put pirate attack. And then if you roll on it randomly, you would get a pirate attack. The game uses the example of zombies, so if it's a zombie world, well, you expect zombies to attack you frequently, and whenever you roll on that spot, that's exactly what you would get. So you can definitely do it for random events where there's an attack that takes you by surprise, but you could do it for a ton of other things. Like, for example, if you're flying in a rusty old spaceship, maybe you would put spaceship malfunction. So when you roll on it, that's exactly what happens. I am adding one last question in post because I think it will really help you wrap your head around the adventure list. Here's the question. What is the difference if I put something like an event in the threads list or the characters list? To answer that, it's helpful to go back to the random event focus table. Let's look at the kinds of random events that can affect threads compared to NPCs. For threads, we have move towards a thread, move away from a thread, and close a thread. While for NPCs, we have new NPC, NPC action, NPC negative, and NPC positive. Now let's take our pirate attack example again, and let's see what happens if we put it in one column versus another. First off, we realize that the thread has to be more defined than something you put in your characters. Basically, it can't be something that happens at random. It has to be something you work towards. So if, as earlier, you put attack of the pirates in your threads, then this would have to be some kind of attack that would happen if certain conditions are met, as opposed to just some kind of event that can occur at random. Here's how this thread could evolve in your game. In one scene, you hear a rumor that the pirates will attack a space station on Venus, so you put that in your list. Then, in another scene, you get a double, so you roll a random event and get move towards a thread. And you see the pirate ships are gathering at a space station near Venus. Then, in your game, you manage to convince the Space Rangers to take care of the problem, so after you join them in battle and defeat the pirates, you end up closing the thread and simply remove it from your list. Alternatively, you might have ended up getting close a thread as a random scene, and you could have just decided that after all the rumors were false and there was never going to be a pirate attack. Now, what if I put pirate attack in the characters list instead? If we got pirate attack with the event focus of NPC action, then we could say they kinda come off out of nowhere, and we just have a normal combat encounter right in the middle of your story, no matter what was happening before. Likewise, if we got NPC positive, we could say that they're at an advantage for that combat. And if we had the inverse, NPC negative, then our characters could have the advantage over the pirates. As you can see, if you put the pirate attack in your thread, then it should be something major, a bit of your story that can take multiple scenes if needed. Whereas if you put it as an event in the characters list, then it will be something more random and surprising. Also, if you find you're still confused about what a thread is, think of it that way. Most threads will be like a goal or something to investigate. There are things your characters work towards and things that keep the story going. So we could have also worded our last example as, will there be a pirate attack on Venus? Or, defeat/prevent the pirate attack on Venus. Like a goal. Hope this helps. Now, a few words on the adventure journal. So this sheet is basically a template Mythic gives you to keep track of your adventure. You will find it on pages 75 and 192. At the top, you will see a spot to put the title of your adventure. On the column on the left, you have 4 rectangles where you can write the number of the scene and a short summary of what happened during it. While on the right, you have place to write the current chaos factor and also add some notes. At the very bottom, you have a little reminder of how the game basically works. So while this sheet is really useful when you first start playing, you can totally do without it. For example, when I play solo, I like to type my adventures in Google Docs or Typora. I start by writing the scene number and the current chaos factor. Then I write my expected scene and test it, and proceed by playing through it. And at the end of the scene, I just say if the factor goes up, down, or stays the same. And when I play with my girlfriend, I still write the scene number, the chaos factor, and the expected scene, but I only write a summary of what happens during it. So I don't write all my fate questions, all my dice rolls, which makes it a lot quicker to do. If you want to play with the adventure journal, I suppose you could print it out or take a screenshot of it and fill it on your computer. And you could also follow the official example on page 177 for how to use it. But as long as you use the adventure list and keep track of your chaos factor, you're all set. You don't need it. So there we go. I hope this helps you get started with Mythic Game Master Emulator. And if you have other questions like these, don't hesitate to leave a comment. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!